Good morning. It's Wednesday, the 22nd of April, and this is the Brussels Playbook Podcast. The vibe in Brussels today is ka-ching. That's the sound of money. Because yes, it's that time again. It only happens every 7 years, even less frequently than the World Cup, and only half as often as Hungary gets a new Prime Minister. The EU is working out its budget again. European Council President Antonio Costa wants to make headway at the summit this week. And also on the podcast today, with an energy crisis on the horizon, the Commission is presenting its emergency energy package today, but not everyone is convinced. And the news that French presidential hopeful Gabriel Attal and European Industry Commissioner Stéphane Séjourné are back together. Yes, it's the on-off relationship soap opera that has gripped political geeks in Brussels and Paris like nothing else, has us asking about other romantic tie-ups in the corridors of power. I'm Ian Wishart, Politico's senior EU politics editor, and with me again today is Ryan Heath, the original author of the Brussels Playbook. I said 10 years last week. It's actually 11 years, isn't it, Ryan?
It is.
Make you
we
feel
operate
old.
in just dog years here at Politico.
And you're back with us because, as we said last week, you're launching Playbook Canberra.
I am indeed.
How long have we got you still in Brussels?
You've left a bit off the script about the outpouring of love for me.
I was going to get to that.
Okay.
The outpouring of love, Ryan. What do you think about the outpouring of love for your voice?
I'm drowning in it still. I'm still wet.
Not usual for an Australian, is it? So shall we talk about the summit in Cyprus?
If we must.
I don't think it's a coincidence that this happened just after the Hungarian election, I must admit.
I mean, I do think everyone needed a holiday after 16 years of Orban. But also, it's the right time of the year for this
Well,
sort of
also because there are decisions now that leaders could make that perhaps they couldn't have done when Orban was there. One of which is the big budget, the 1.8 trillion EU budget, the MFF as it's called. Antonio Costa, the European Council President, wants to make headway on it. Do you want to tell us what he's trying to achieve? I know you're an MFF expert, Ryan.
Oh, I am, and he wants to devote 2 whole hours.
2 hours?
Which is enough.
What's 1.8 trillion divided by 2 hours?
I don't know, but this is a 7-year budget and 2-hour debate. Honestly, Stalin and Xi Jinping would be proud of that one. But what he really wants to achieve is a budget deal by the end of the year. If you want to do that, clearly the time is ticking. You need to do it now. But it's not just the number that's going to be controversial. It's how he wants to do it. He wants to raise new EU-wide taxes. And that, as we know, is a non-starter for a bunch of countries.
Well, I mean, it's the Commission really that came out with this proposal in the first place. So they're talking about the new taxes, own resources as it's called. They propose new levies on tobacco products, on non-recycled electric waste, on revenues on business, that kind of thing. That's the thing that's the most controversial aspect of it, and always has been in the EU, because it takes sovereignty away from national governments, really, doesn't it?
100%.
Tax-raising powers.
And of course, this is horse trading. So you have the northern and frugal states that will insist that the budget can't rise, and it always does. And then you have folks over at the parliament and in some of the other member states who demand
love the money.
Unreasonable increases.
We're not allowed to say unreasonable, Ryan. Because we're an impartial podcast. But you're quite right. Some people do think it's unreasonable.
That's exactly what I meant.
One of the reasons why they want to generate this extra revenue is because the EU has to repay actually 25 billion euros a year from 2028 because of the debt that they racked up over COVID.
Absolutely. And if you don't increase the size of the budget, you'd have to cut something. And that, of course, is a lot harder than scrabbling together more money.
Because, all countries have to agree finally what the budget should look like. A lot of countries don't want to lose funding, particularly in things like agriculture and stuff like that, which has traditionally been such a...
People remember money being taken away a lot more than they remember a slight increase in a budget.
So we talked about Orban unblocking this perhaps and allowing at least a debate to take place. But this is bookended by the possibility of the French presidential elections next year. This is why there's such a rush. They want to have a number in place. They want the leaders to actually agree to a final decision before the French elections, possibly unraveling the whole thing.
Indeed, but it's not necessarily going to solve a lot just to get a slightly bigger budget in if Marine Le Pen or Jordan Bardella were to end up as the president of France. We got to focus on the big existential questions here. The budget's going to look pretty unimportant in that context if that happens next year.
Okay, so 2 hours. Probably chance of any type of deal within 2 hours is quite slim, but something that we might get a decision on, or something at least that they can trumpet at the summit this week, is finally approval for the 90 billion euro loan to Ukraine. It looks like that's probably going to go through now, but it's a great chance for the leaders to say, hey, we did it.
Absolutely. If Viktor Orban's dropping his opposition or isn't going to be there, interesting, but always look at the next layer would be my advice. What is he getting protected in exchange for suddenly softening his position? You know, it might be a win on the budget. There might be some other sort of slap around the corner.
Well, to find out what, read all about it in Politico. Ryan, the European Commission today is presenting its big energy package as it attempts to fend off this big crisis, the rising prices and that kind of thing. Since the war broke out in Iran, the EU's obviously tried to manage this as well as it can. We've got some documents that shows what it might announce today. There's quite a lot here. What do you think are the things we need to pick out?
Well, I'm very amused by the idea of mandatory work from home days after the last 2 years of debates of various leaders insisting we all get back to the office. So I'm not saying that the EU was telling us to get back to the office, but it's a kind of hilarious full circle when you consider it in the broad context. We've got lower or free public transport might be coming in certain places. The member states are getting nudged to do tax cuts on electricity and other clean technologies to get people to shift to those decentralized green options. So there is no Strait of Hormuz problem next time round. And then the biggest one of all is the EU wants to move forward on coordinated buying of gas, because as we all know now, there aren't many gas reserves and these high prices look set to stick around. So time to get collective bargaining.
There's a lot of long-term issues as well that they're going to talk about today. We hear including sort of commitments to speed up the decarbonisation of EU grids, mobilising green investment, encouraging increased adoption of green appliances at home. But that seems such a long way off that I think the criticism will be that that's not solving anything at the moment. This acute crisis of rising prices now that people see at the petrol pump.
Yeah, and also if the crisis is so acute and people can't afford these higher petrol prices, well, how are they going to afford 99 euro toasters? Like, it doesn't fit together. And, you know, we might all be doing some staycations this summer because there is a bit of a jet fuel crisis bundled into this situation. There's only 6 weeks of jet fuel supplies left. The Commission denies that there's a problem here, but, you know, 6 weeks is a long time before the height of summer.
Have you bought your ticket back to Australia yet? Or are we going to be stuck with you?
No. I'm going through New York, actually, because I thought if I go through Dubai, it's just going to be cancelled.
Yeah. Okay, Ryan, there's some other stories that people might want to read on the Politico website today. Last week, I called you a blast from the past. Well, how's this for a blast from the past? The Austro-Hungarian Empire. Hungary's next leader, Peter Magyar, has said he wants to deepen ties with other countries nearby, especially Austria, building on the strong economic links and that history that they used to share together so well.
There's some big palaces that still need to be filled.
What can possibly go wrong? And also, we're reporting today that a push by Germany to get the EU to weaken restrictions on using artificial intelligence in industrial manufacturing is facing growing opposition in Brussels. 10 EU countries are opposing a plan to shift products such as machinery and medical devices partly out of the scope of the EU's AI law. You can read those on the Politico website, or we link to them in our show notes. Ryan, yesterday we mentioned very briefly that France's former Prime Minister and presidential hopeful Gabriel Attal has rekindled his relationship with the EU Industry Commissioner Stéphane Séjourné. Did you have any illicit affairs that you remember from your days working at the European Commission?
Always a curveball with you, Ian.
I'm not saying ones that you were involved in. I'm saying ones that you knew about.
I mean, I couldn't possibly comment. But I do think this one's a real water cooler conversation. Everyone's going to have an opinion on this one.
The serious point is the potential conflict of interest, because you could possibly have the President of France and France's commissioner, who is supposed to be not working in the French interest but the European interest, in a relationship together.
Yeah, that is a high potential conflict of interest. But I also think we need to be grown-ups as I think these two individuals would be as well. And my worry is not that they're suddenly going to just be deeply unethical with each other. You know, I was in the green room with Sejourné at a big Politico event that we had in Barcelona a couple of weeks back. He's a very nervous individual. Like, I don't think this man is like rushing to break ethical boundaries. I'd be more worried about the stress on the relationship. Like, I think their union is going to suffer more than the union.
More than the European Union.
End up in this situation.
I've always been of the view that people in very high-pressure jobs are naturally drawn together, either because they're addicted to the adrenaline rush or the power or the high-profile nature of what they do. So I don't think it's any surprise that people in these positions are drawn together, is it?
No, absolutely not, because they feel often lonely or that nobody can understand what they're going through.
It's like why you get so many journalists together in relationships.
Oh, yes, and drinking problems and things like that.
Speak for yourself, Ryan, as Zoya would say. You know, we have another birthday to talk about today. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk, also, of course, previously the President of the European Council. He's 69 today.
He's looking trim, taut, and terrific for 69. So cheers to you, Don.
Whenever we talk about Donald Tusk, I tell people a lot that they should read it was a really great lunch with the FT in, I think it was 2014.
Yes,
just after
Henry Foy.
Exactly.
Indeed.
Now Brussels bureau chief of the FT. And it's a great interview with Tusk about how he used to be a teenage football hooligan and how he used to come home with, a bloodied nose and that kind of thing. It's a really great interview, and it really talks about the personality of the man. And certainly when he was in Brussels and he used to talk to us journalists, he would be really charismatic and funny, and he was a nice person to be a journalist with, because he would always give you sort of good quotes and genuine opinions.
And wasn't sleeping with the Polish Prime Minister?
Not that we know. And earlier this week, Tusk met Emmanuel Macron in Gdansk, where Tusk comes from, and they discussed nuclear exercises. And according to a post on X by Tusk, the French president texted him in the middle of the night saying how much he loves Gdansk. I don't know if there was anything to do with the fact that they were talking about nuclear Armageddon, but...
Or maybe France has some extra submarines they're now able to sell Poland. But an Australian shouldn't comment on that.
Whether it's that, or halloumi, or Cypriot sausages that sound like Ukrainian surnames, the EU multi-annual financial framework, nuclear Armageddon, we've got it all covered on this podcast. So join us again tomorrow, and we'll speak to you again soon, I hope, Ryan.
It would be a pleasure.
Have a good day, everyone.